Hi, welcome back to the HR Agility Blue Stage. I hope you had a great walk around the garden. That's what I did. So a great little break and feel rejuvenated and refreshed and ready to go. It's been a fantastic day so far, really enjoying all the talks. And we've been exploring what's the new leadership look like in the future of work? How do we start to build trusting, safe environments where people can learn from their mistakes, but start to be truly innovative and creative to solve the business problems that they have in front of us. We also started to look at how do we move away from just people strategy, but thinking kind of fully workplace strategy, and how do we start to mobilize our whole workforce in view of what's going on for our customers and the world around us. And this is all about business agility, and this is what we're here about today. What is HR's role in enabling business agility? Our sponsors today is Culture Amp, which is a fantastic tool to help you do that. And it helps you work evidence-based. And we're going to talk about that very soon in the next talk, which is mine. And also the sponsor of the whole conference, of course, is Indeed. And again, really on that cutting edge of how do we start to build skills and capability to actually shift based on customer needs, not just the old traditional concepts of hierarchy and job roles. Okay, so let's get into it. I've finally got a chance to speak as well, which is really exciting. And we're going to actually get into the ins and outs of Agile HR. And some of you may be familiar with my new book, the Agile HR book. And this is all about how do we co-create great employee experience or people experience and really build a holistic approach to how we do that in our organizations, full of moments that matter for our people and brand. All right, let's get into it. So everything that we've been exploring today is about the new working paradigm. So as organizations start to shift and transform, and they're seeking ways to build collaborative networks of small interactive teams that are multi-skilled, adaptive and flexible enough to respond to the customer needs real time. I think I've said it a couple of times already, but there's nothing like a pandemic to bring out the reasons why we have to start working in a more agile way. But what does an agile mindset really mean? And in particular, if we were to start to use that in our own work in the world of HR, what does that start to look and feel like? And that's what we're going to explore now. A lot of you, however, today are probably reflecting or maybe have seen examples of how we have to do our people practices very differently if we're going to enable the new working paradigm. So moving away from this command and control tailored pyramid structure that we have known for a long time, and then moving more into enabling the real responsive network that can respond and adapt real time to customer needs. So business seeks agility for a number of reasons. And I think it's really important whenever you start to talk about agility in your organization to properly define why. What is the purpose for going agile, and what are you trying to solve by embracing an agile mindset? Now, many of you will be familiar with the drivers on the screen now. So adapting to customer needs, driving customer value at a fastest pace, being able to attract the right people and build an amazing people experience to enrich how they do their job day to day and get the best we can out of everyone while they're with us in our organization. We, of course, need to respond to disruption and crisis, and this has been, brought forward like nothing else with COVID. And part of that is being able to digitalize and innovate. So we're seeing organizations needing to totally shift their whole production line into a new area. We saw a digitalization of the customer experience as well as the employee experience overnight to be able to stay in operation when we responded to COVID. These are huge trends that were predicted to take another 7 to 10 years. Then they started to happen within a couple of months. So business is seeking organizational agility to deal with all these challenges. But as I said, be really clear about what challenge you need to solve when you embrace it, because that's what it's about, having a purpose and vision to your own agility needs. So a big theme today is, well, if we're going to help enable Agile in our organizations, then we need to know what that is. And we need to do it ourselves. And to be honest, when I actually discovered the power of what agile working can do for HR, I never looked back. And so I want to kind of explore the energy that it can give you to solve your own business problems in HR and really start to enrich the outcomes that you have, and in particular, be seen as value deliveries or value adding function to your organization. So many of you will know that I'm Natal Dank, and I head up I head up learning, coaching and community at HRcoreCulture. Please link up with me on LinkedIn and on Twitter. I love talking about Agile HR, and we can explore your specific needs and questions together. Also, please pop your questions into the chat today, and we will get to them towards the end of this presentation. Recently wrote a book called Agile HR, and this is about delivering value in a changing world of work. So how do we be seen as adding value to our business and most importantly, our end customer in what we do in HR? And how do we start evolving how we work, our operating model, and also just the way we can partner with the business to achieve that? This is the practical toolkit that I really wanted when I first started years ago. And I sort of seen as one of the first people to really start working in an agile way with HR. And since then I've worked with a number of HR leaders and teams to really make this practical and real. And that's what I do all day. So I work with teams every day about how do you make this relevant to how you work in your organization. We do loads of free meetups, so come over to HRcoreCulture and join us for a free meetup. Next one is Ask Me Any Questions, that's next week. And we do a lot of great learning programs, both public, but in particular, we really help in-house enterprise teams shift and accelerate in their transformation. So come and check out what we're doing. There's a great experiment meetup coming up soon where you'll actually go through an Agile HR learning sprint over a 3-hour period. So do come on and join that. It'll be fantastic. So let us know your questions in chat as we go through the next few topics, and I will definitely aim to get to as many as I can today, and of course we can follow up afterwards as well. So I think to help HR people understand agility, we need to translate it into our own context. So what we do each day, what does agility mean for us? And take it out of the tech world where it began 20 years ago and start to translate it into our own roles, our own disciplines, our own topics. The best way to do that is to see agility as a way to help you solve complex problems. This is how it started. So if we consider tech 20 years ago, they were creating software in a world that started to disrupt and change around them. And they realized they needed a more adaptive way of designing great products and in particular, understanding the value that they were delivering to their customer early and often. So how do I understand this? How do I understand the value straight up before I implement the whole solution? And how can I then incrementally build that out over time? And I'm going to go into that in a little bit more detail for you. So let's think about it. This is where Agile really started. It was in response to a more traditional, what we call waterfall way of working. And this is where you plan your whole project up front, often using a Gantt chart, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. So cascading down your Gantt chart is all the different roles, responsibilities, the budget, the planning, the documentation, the training, and then we get to implementation. Now, I'm not saying that waterfall is wrong or bad, but it's suiting less and less the complex environment that we work in. Because if you work on something for 3 months, 6 months, maybe a year, and then implement it out to your customer or your people, first of all, is it still going to suit the environment in which you're implementing into? Generally not. Our plans just don't hold very long anymore. But also, how do you know that what you're implementing is going to solve the problem you're trying to look at and also deliver the value that you want to achieve? So Agile was a response to that. It was saying, okay, we actually need a better way of designing products and running projects. And so what happened is they went and said, okay, well, how could we still have the same vision and goal, but instead of planning everything up front, let's just focus on the most important thing to begin with first. And let's aim to get something of value out to our customer in a short period of time. So it might not be the whole solution yet. It might be part of it, or it might be a minimal valuable product, or a smaller version, or you might go and test it in one part of the business first. And then you get the feedback. So did this work for you? Did it not? And you use the customer feedback to drive the next piece of work. And that allows you to then go, all right, are we on the right path? Do we continue in the same direction? Or do we need to take in changes or pivot based on what we've now learnt? Or did it totally fail? And actually, we need to just stop right there. I often talk about one of my first projects that I ever worked in, and it was around evolving performance and reward. And something that really kind of made me realize the power of Agile is we set up small experiment teams to look at how do you give and receive feedback with the idea of then evolving performance and reward. So we needed to get some data first. And for one team, I gave them a tech application to help them give and receive feedback. And I thought, oh, they'll love it. You know, it's on their phone. It's going to help them give feedback to each other. They hated it and it failed miserably. But because it was an experiment, because I hadn't necessarily rolled it out across the whole organization yet, and I was treating it as a test and learn, I stopped there. And I found out that they needed a better way to give and receive feedback with each other, have a psychologically safe environment rather than just a tech solution. And then I was able to go off in a new direction. We made substantial changes to bonus structures and how you did performance in this organization, but we did it in a data-driven way. We also co-created. So by the time of the implementation, we had co-created the employee experience together. And this is what's so fundamental with working in an Agile way. So let's take all these concepts and start putting them into HR. So we need to translate the Agile mindset into our own world of HR culture and organizational change. So Agile says, all right, let's put the customer in the heart of what we're doing. And now let's look at how we incrementally deliver value to that customer. So this is slice by slice, piece by piece. It means you need to validate what that value is. So you need to do some testing, you need to do some prototyping and understand that what you're going to be working on is going to solve the problem. And then you start to build it out incrementally and deliver value over a longer period of time. It also means that if anything happens, you can adapt and change and pivot direction. But also if you've actually just got to stop, you've delivered a whole amount of value already. And this is what Agile is all about. This is what the business is trying to do with your customer. And this is what we can also do with our internal customer, our people. Agile also says, okay, having that Gantt chart and having all these roles and responsibilities where you hand it over to each other, that's just going to slow you down. And actually, to respond immediately to the customer, you need all the skills in the team to get the job done. So this is why Agile equals multi-skilled, multifunctional teams. It's about saying actually you need small multi-skilled teams, and we often use the term T-shape, so a breadth of experience, but able to deep dive into different specialisms. So with your T-shaped teams, how do we go about collaborating in a way where we can actually respond real time to customer needs? And actually, if we're hiring great people and have great skills, the best way is to help them just self-organize to get on with it. So make sure the vision is clear, but then allow teams to make the decision on how at that team level. And this is where the power of Agile happens. Now think about taking that into HR. This is the end of our silos. This is saying actually to solve complex problems like well-being, designing people strategy, building the hybrid office of tomorrow, this actually needs all the skills that we have in HR, not just topic owners like head of learning and development, head of talent, head of recruitment. Actually, we need to be in the team together to do this in the best way. And this means we can start to deliver value early and often, just like the business is trying to do with their customer. So Agile started with the manifesto 20 years ago, and this is actually the celebration of the Agile manifesto at the moment, which is really exciting. And what we're looking at is taking this sort of piece of writing that was originally presented in quite a tech way and thinking, well, how does this start to translate into our world? And if we were to start to enable business agility, what do we need to do and change in terms of our people practices to help do that? So if we think about things like performance, if we think about things like reward, if we think about things like onboarding, do the way that we've set up the processes and systems, do they help business agility, or could they even block it sometimes? And actually, we need to look at how do we redesign a lot of these things to really help the agile mindset flourish. So looking at the manifesto, it's pretty straightforward, but as I said earlier, it can feel a bit techy. So it's things like individuals and interactions over processes and tools, working software, so getting something working over comprehensive documentation. What's really interesting about the manifesto is it's saying that the things on the left are not necessarily wrong. It's just that we're going to go after the things on the right first, because this is what we need to land before we can then move into the things on the left. So responding to change, we need to make sure we can over following the plan, but planning is still very important. Okay, and so now let's think about how that might look in the world of HR. Well, the first one is about people over process, isn't it? And I don't know about you, but there's been a lot of times where I've walked around the organization saying, oh no, it's the conversation that's the most important thing, not the form that you're filling in or the tech solution you're needing to submit the information on. So how do we actually start there? How do we build a user-centric solution where it's all about the people being great in their job rather than the process it is? Now let's think about the people experiences over the policy. So policy is important, but it needs to enable real-time decisions and it needs to enrich the employee experience. Do we even need it written down in the way that we, do not do this, do not do this? Is it more about having values and boundaries on what people can do to then make their own decisions? And then it's about creating value over perfectionism. So this is a bit hard at first for HR because we've always wanted to be, everything needs to be shiny and new before we release it. But actually what is perfect? It's that people are using what we're kind of putting into the organization. They're finding value in it. And we need to determine that upfront. So go and test, go and experiment, go and show something before it's fully done and get the feedback and understand as if you're on the right track. And then we're looking at adaptability over being prescriptive. So yes, there is a time and place for standardized solutions and definitely lean, efficient operations, but we've got to be able to adapt and we've got to be able to respond real time. And I think I've heard time and time again today, we've got to move away from just one size fits all and thinking about the business problems we're trying to solve and the different segments of our workforce that we need to delight. Okay, so putting all of this together, we can start to see that agility can really help HR solve their complex problems, not just the business. And this is where it kind of gets really exciting. We can actually use it ourselves to really enrich what we're doing and get much better results, as well as help the business achieve the agility that they need to respond to the market around them. So to modernize and digitalize and definitely to end our silos, to be able to deliver value across the organization, we need to prioritize and we need to end the wish list. So we have huge complex problems like well-being, like building the hybrid office. Where do you start with these? They're so big. So actually Agile helps you break these complex problems down into sizable, manageable chunks of work and actually goes, right, I'm going after tangible wins and I'm going to demonstrate this value through data. This gives us a seat at the table and it's a very different experience to where we've been in the past. So all of this helps us co-create the employee experience. So a key message around embracing Agile in HR is rather than implementing change onto people, we want to build the change with them. So by inviting them in, building prototypes, testing, asking them to be part of the team itself, we can actually build change together. And this is such an exciting new way of working that really has a way of not only kind of making our life better because we get better results, but actually really builds value across the organization. So a lot of this is about knowing the pain points to solve, the moments that matter. Some of them we know already, starting a new job, becoming a new manager. These are things that we know that if we solve and we make them great, we can really enrich people's employee experience. But also, how do we start seeing the whole experience like a journey, like the customer journey? And imagine if we start putting the same investment, the same time, the same focus that we spend on delighting the customer, on delighting our employee. We can help them be the best they can be. And this equals a really high performance organization. And this is what we're going after. It also helps us work evidence-based. So we've had a lot of discussions today around working with data, understanding what the problem is, testing our hypothesis and going after that ROI. Agile naturally helps you do this. So it's a way of actually demonstrating your value through data. It also helps you manage your HIPPOs, so your highest paid person's opinion. I don't know about you, but a lot of the time, the CEO, the senior executive, they often turn up with a solution. So, we've got a problem with this team. They need a training program. Oh, there's a problem with the managers. We need to do a management development program, or we need a talent solution. But what's the problem here? What are we trying to solve? By working in an agile way, we'll go and deep dive into these problems and go, okay, well, do we actually need training, or is there something else going on here about how the team works? Is it maybe the leader themselves and in their style, and we need to help them be more trusting and transparent? So this is how we start to use things like design thinking, prototype testing to make value data-driven decisions. And putting it all together is something quite exciting around how we start to really collaborate in a new way with the business. So this is a new operating model, and this is a topic that we could talk about all day. Indeed, we could have a whole conference around it. So this is seeing HR teams starting to work very differently. And indeed, are we going to be called HR going forward? Are we going to be something like people experience and operations, people and culture, maybe working much more end-to-end and in collaboration with other support areas like finance, marketing, and tech to build out that whole employee experience in that more end-to-end, full accountable way. It also says, okay, to work in an agile way, you want a multi-skilled team. So first of all, it's definitely all the topic owners of HR in together, solving the problem together, and then prioritizing what to go after. So what's the most important thing to solve for your business first, and why? It's then embracing ways of working to visualize your work and prioritize. And this is big in Agile. So using things like Kanban boards, Scrum boards to really understand the value you're delivering at any one period of time. It's also looking at how do we be more transparent. So to make real-time decisions and self-organize, you need the information. It needs to be in front of you. Everyone needs the same information. So this is a premise for HR to work together better, but also for a premise going forward in how we build people solutions, things like reward, things like performance. Why do these things need to be secret? It's actually, if we all have the same information, we can actually trust and make better decisions. And then there's a real cadence in how we start to work when we embrace Agile. So Agile is based on this feedback loop. And as I said, short cycles. So gone are the days of the annual cycle where you would do annual performance reviews or annual career development. And instead, we're looking at these short feedback loops. So you plan, you go and do, and then you review your work, and then you do a retrospective on how you've worked as a team. Now, this is reinventing how HR teams work. So I'm working with a lot of them at the moment where you've got a senior HR team, they've set their strategy, and each month they're looking at, well, what did we actually deliver against that strategy? What have we achieved? Let's review the delivery and actually look at the feedback, look at the data. Now let's think about how we've worked as a team. And now let's take that into the next month of the strategy and think about, are we on the right track? Do we need to pivot direction? Do we need to kill something? Do we need to innovate further? Or actually, are we fully going in the right way? And this is fine. Let's keep going in this direction. This is leading to such more dynamism in how we work, and also validating constantly as we go that we are on the right direction and we're delivering value. So we start to really demonstrate this value in such a new way. And this is such a powerful thing for people in HR. Not quite getting the functions going well. So this is about helping people be great in their job to deliver business and end customer value, and understanding that flow throughout the whole organization, using the same language, the same tools that the business is using to truly co-create the employee experience and basically build the future of work together. And this means that it's not necessarily about us having all the answers ourselves. It's about finding the answers with the people that we work with. And it's such a powerful way of working that is innovating whole companies from Tesla to Netflix, and can truly innovate the HR profession as well. Okay, so I am going to pop over and have a quick look at the questions coming in. And we've got one here of, hey Natal, 3 steps or tips for us to transform from a classical HR setup into an agile business model. Okay, so it's very contextual. So if you're wanting to embrace agile and start transforming your operating model, you need to be very conscious of your starting point. So are you in a more traditional organization? Is anyone working agile yet or not? Or are you in more of a startup organization and therefore agile values are quite well known and they're all around you? So think about your starting point and be very conscious of that, because if you're working in a more traditional organization, you might need to start in a different place. You might not use the term agile, and you might need to do things in a way that builds curiosity first rather than kind of jumping into running a project in that whole new way. But once you're kind of ready and you've thought about your context and then go and think about what's the problem you're solving. So if you're going to embrace agile, you need to know the problem. So why are you embracing agile? What do you want to achieve with it? Once that's clear, now let's make a plan. So the best way to start is by seeing it as an experiment. So give yourself some space, ideally 3 months if you can, of allowing your team to start working in a new way. First off, aim to visualize all your work. So we don't do this enough in HR. What is everything that we've got in the strategy, in the business as usual, and what do we need to get done? And then what's our capacity against that? What can we actually achieve? And then start to embrace that cadence. So if it feels more comfortable, go for a monthly cadence to begin with, ideally every couple of weeks, and start going, okay, what are we actually going to deliver this month? What are we setting out to achieve? Let's commit to that. Now at the end of the month, what happened? Did we deliver? Did we get value from that? What's been the feedback? What's been the data? Okay, how are we working? What do we need to change, improve, and go forward on? So this is ways that you can use the agile feedback loop to actually build the operating model. Don't get too caught up on tools and techniques to begin with. Think more visualization of work, prioritization, and embrace experimentation. Okay, so I think they're wrapping me up. I'm going to see if I can do one more quick. How does Agile HR work for very operative routine HR tasks? So think of it less about the kind of task you're doing and think more about your whole workload. So Agile can help teams understand where to spend their time and the value they're delivering. So that's business as usual, as well as your strategic projects. So on the board, on the Kanban board or on the Scrum board, depending on what you're using, there are going to be business as usual tasks or more operative tasks, and then there's going to be more strategic pieces of work. You need to use the same agile mindset with all of them. So do I do the business as usual, or do I spend time on the strategic project? How and why do I spread my capacity across the two? The operative task, you might just go and get that done. For the strategic project, this is where you might be innovating and prototyping and testing more. So you'll start to use a sort of different concepts or different approaches for different pieces of work, but the whole lot can sit in an agile cadence. And that's what you're wanting. You're wanting to embrace a whole kind of mindset change. And then within that, look at the different tasks that you need to do. Okay, there's been so many questions, so I will keep note of them. And we'll see how we can bring them in as we go forward in the conference. Someone says, do you think Agile is for everyone? Definitely, of course. And it doesn't matter what role you're in HR, because Agile helps you understand value and how you can deliver value in the organization. So it doesn't always have to be about prototyping and testing. It can be actually delivering great value and just being great at what you do.